Okay, creating a rubric in Angel is pretty simple, the mechanics of it. Now, why do you want to use a rubric? Well, A, it streamlines your grading, but most importantly, it really tells your students exactly how they're being assessed. What steps do they have to take? What do they have to add to the presentation or to the assignment that will get them to the grade that they want? So, the more detailed you make your rubric, the better your student understands what he or she needs to do to get the grade they're looking for. So that makes them a little, it takes some time to set a rubric up. It takes no time to actually put the thing connected to an assignment in Angel. It just takes time to create it. So what I'll do is I'm going to show you how to actually create a rubric, and we'll step through a rubric that I have. The first thing you want to do is go to Manage. And then we're going to look over in this Data Management tab and look all the way to the bottom to Rubric Manager. So we click on that. Now I've already got a rubric created. But if you're starting from scratch, you want to click on the little Add link up here. And you could do some existing things here. You can create a new rubric. You could copy an existing rubric, or you can link. What we're going to look at right now is we're going to create a new one. Now, if you already have one you've done in Angel for another class, you can copy it. But we're going to create one. So we click Create. We're asked to name it. And this is your achievement column going across the top. I'm going to set it with 4. I'm going to change this to 10% because I want them to get some. They're going to get some points if they show up and at least do it, or they hand it in and it's at least there. I think if they try, technically you can't. I wouldn't think you should give them a 0, but that's just me. Then we're going to label it. I'm just going to keep it achievement level. You could, name it whatever you want, how you did on the project, or what you need to get a good grade, that kind of thing. Then you want to add how many rows do you want, the criteria. I'm just going to leave it at 4, and I'm going to leave it called criteria. So we hit next step, and we're into what pretty much looks like a rubric. It is a blank rubric, but it's a rubric nonetheless. Now on this side you've got your criteria. So now what would you put over here? Let's say this is for a presentation, because that's the one I had created earlier, and I'm going to use that as my example. So what do we want to grade for in this presentation? Well, I want to grade for, I'm going to do one line of this. I want to grade for, let's say, presentation skills. Now, since this isn't a public speaking class, it's a mass media and communication class. I don't want to weigh that too heavily. I want them to be able to speak properly, obviously, and do well in that respect, but that's not like a heavy component of it. So I'm going to drop that down to only weighing 10%. As you can see, it changes that. Whereas the next one, content, I'm going to bump up to 35%. And this one might be, I'm going to do that at 30%. And this one might be, let's say, organization. And I'll do that at 30% as well. And I'm actually going to drop this organization down to 25. Again, because it's not as important as content or the use of the media. That and these have to equal 100. Now across the top, I'm just going to leave those the way they are. Achievement level 1, 2, 3, and 4. You could get creative with these. Did poorly, getting better, almost there, awesome. So you could change those whatever you want, and of course to do that, you just click on it, and you could change it right there. You can also do the percentage. I usually set mine at 10, 33, 67, and 100, and we'll see how that works with the presentation and these criteria as a percentage, because we're used to seeing them as points. And we'll walk through that in a second. And then really here comes the hard part, or here comes the part that takes time. Your wording in here. What do they have to do to only get 1% in presentation? Was it was very nervous. I'll just leave that for now. And I didn't spell it very right. Let's put a Y in there. So you would have to go through here. And this is where it's tricky, getting your wording down. What I usually do is I will Google a bunch of different rubrics on sort of the topic I'm looking for. I'll Google presentation rubrics, new media presentation rubrics, and I'll see kind of how what they use for wording. Maybe I'm missing a good thing I should have over here as a criteria, and I'm able to put together a rubric that way. Now, after you have all of these filled out, you go on to the next step. Now, it's going to give me an error because I have not filled them out, but we wouldn't have time for me to do all those in this. Again, this would be all filled out. We would hit save. And now there's my rubric. Now let's say I wanted to edit that rubric. I would click on this little guy here, and I would click edit. Again, I could rename it, I copy it, delete it, or preview and print it, or hide it. So what I'm going to do is, through the miracle of modern television, I'm going to pull up that rubric, completed. And now you can see that all the boxes are filled out. For this presentation, 10%, achievement level 10%, presenters were confident or underconfident and demonstrated little evidence of planning prior to presentation. And then, of course, it gets better as they go along. And each one of those are like that. You have to build so that you see what the highest point there is. Presenters were all very confident in delivery, and they did an excellent job engaging the class. Preparation was very evident. So obviously 1% to 10%, this being the highest. As you can see, the numbers are higher for these because I've got a higher weighting here. And again, you might be looking at saying, why are these percents? I'm used to seeing points. When we actually incorporate this into an assignment over in our learning modules, Angel will do the math and we'll see the points. So this won't be 1%, it'll be 1 point, 3.3 points, 6.7 points. So I'm going to cancel out of this because I didn't want to do anything here. You can also, like I said earlier, click on this and do a print preview. And this is what it would look like, and we could click print, and we can print to an HTML file, or we can print to a PDF. Why this is handy is I can then print that as a PDF. It'll save it to my desktop or wherever it wants to save it. I can then go into my class and have that rubric available for them to print out. I'll show you how to do that in a second. So we've created our rubric, we've saved it. If you see here, it shows when we created it and how many and content items. This will show 1 or 2 or 3 wherever you put when you put this rubric to an assignment. So now we know these really aren't being used anywhere. So let's attach this rubric. If we go over to Learning Modules, we go into Module 2. We can look down to, here's this presentation right here. That's the presentation assignment. I'm going to click Settings and go over to Assignment. If you remember from earlier videos, we were using the gradebook option. Now we're going to be using the rubric. It says no rubric is in use because we haven't set it yet. So we'll go ahead and set it. And this is where it helps to name your rubrics in a very detailed manner so you know which one it is. If you didn't name it in a detailed manner, you can always preview it and say, okay, yeah, that's the one. Now, we want to display that rubric to students before submitting, so we're going to check that. This way they know what it is. Yes, we're going to make it available for them to print out, but this way they can actually see it in Angel. And we want them to display it after they've submitted. So when they see their grades, they can go back and actually look at the rubric again. Now I'm going to hit Save. And then I'm going to go into this presentation. And if you look right over here, there's the View Grading Rubric link. So the students can click on that and see how they're going to be graded on that assignment. They can print that out or they can close it. And make sure you tell your students there's a grading rubric. Look at it. Follow the rubric. That's how you're going to get the assessment level, the grade you want. And if you notice now, we're changing over to points. Remember, this was 10% and this was 10%, 1 point. 10% of 33% is 3.3 points. This was, I think, 67%, and so on and so on. And then the student can print that out or close it. Now let's say we're in here as a faculty member. How do we grade this? How do we grade something using this rubric? So I'm going to just add something to this drop box. Of course, they could attach something and then submit it, but I'm just going to submit this. Okay, so here we are. We're the faculty member, we're the instructor. We're going to grade this presentation using the rubric. So I click on the link for this person's assignment. Now what I would do at this point is, for this assignment in this class, they're actually going to be pasting in a link to Prezi. I am then going to be watching them give the presentation in class, and I'll also have their Prezi to look at. So I'll be in class taking notes or just circling things on this rubric. But let's say it was a paper or anything, you could just be having the paper in front of you, make notes on it, and then come over and click Use Grading Rubric. And then I would look at the presentation and I'd say, okay, he was a good presenter. You can see the points are starting to add up to a maximum of 100 points. Organization, it could have been a little bit better. The presentation had organizing ideas, but would have been stronger with more preparation. Same thing here under use of media. They did a decent job, but could have done better. And there was a very good amount of content that really helped the project. And as you see, it totaled the grade up right there. So we now hit Save. Their grade is there. We hit OK. And we have left the rubric. Now if we go back to that, the student would see their grade here. Right? This is what the student view looks like, just showing their grade. But then right in this as well, it puts View Rubric Scores. So they can click on this, and they can look and see what I clicked on and how I graded them using the rubric. So all the mystery is taken out of it. well, wait, 81, where did that come from? Okay, this is what I fell short on. This is what I fell short on. Next time they know, okay, I need to do this more to beef this one up, and so on and so on. So using rubrics can really, it does multiple things. It helps you grade. That was very easy. Click, click, click. It also takes the guesswork out of how I'm grading it myself. It takes the guesswork out how to students and what they need to do to get the assessment they're looking for, and it's super easy to add them to your assignments.